One person can't change the world, but one person carrying a message can change the world.
Willie Nelson has been the beating heart of American country music, the outlaw poet, the quiet rebel, and the voice of a generation that found truth in simplicity. With his weathered face, gentle smile, and voice that trembles with wisdom, Willie has sung about love, pain, loss, and redemption like no one else. But now, at 91, the man who once seemed unstoppable is finally opening up about something fans have long feared, the real reason he wants it all to end. To most, Willie has always seemed eternal. The endless road trips, the smoky concerts, the laughter shared with legends like Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash. But behind the calm and humor lies a man who's grown weary of the weight of his own legend. In a recent conversation, Willie spoke with a raw honesty that silenced even his closest friends. He wasn't talking about quitting music for fame or health. It was something deeper, something spiritual. As he put it, you can only chase the wind for so long before you realize you've become part of it. What did he mean by that? Why is the man who built his life on stage lights, guitars, and endless tours suddenly ready to say goodbye? The truth Willie Nelson revealed is not about sadness, it's about peace. After years of battling pain, loss, and change, he's finally found a reason to let go. And in doing so, he's teaching the world one last lesson about what it truly means to live. Because when Willie Nelson says he's ready for it to end, he's not talking about fame. He's talking about something far more profound. For Willie Nelson, the road was more than just a place, it was home. For over 60 years, he lived his life out of a tour bus, crisscrossing America's highways, playing to sold-out crowds and writing songs that spoke to the soul of the common man. To many, he was more than a country icon. He was a symbol of endurance, proof that passion could outlast time itself. But behind that easy smile and red bandana, Willie was quietly wrestling with a truth he'd carried for years. Even legends get tired. Born in Abbott, Texas in 1933, Willie grew up surrounded by the rhythms of rural life, church choirs, radio static, and the hum of old guitars. Music became his escape from poverty and pain, a way to turn hardship into poetry. When he hit Nashville, he was told his voice was too nasal, his songs too unconventional. But Willie didn't change. Instead, he walked away from the system and built his own world, the outlaw movement, alongside artists like Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and Johnny Cash. Together, they rewrote the rules of country music. Songs like Blue Eyes, Crying in the Rain, and On the Road Again became anthems of freedom and resilience. But while the world celebrated his rebel spirit, the man behind the music was paying a price. The endless touring, the late nights, the heartbreak, and the personal losses began to leave scars. In private, Willie started to talk about the road taking more than it gives. He loved his fans, but the constant travel took a toll on his body and spirit. Friends noticed he'd grown quieter, more reflective. He'd sit with his guitar and stare out at the open sky, sometimes whispering lines to himself. Half prayers, half songs. When asked once what kept him going, Willie smiled and said, "Habit, I guess. And maybe I just ain't learned how to stop." But lately, that habit had begun to feel heavy. The stages that once felt like home now reminded him of the friends he'd lost. Waylon, Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash. The laughter was gone, replaced by echoes. Willie never complained, but his songs began to change. The humor was still there, but the tone grew softer, more final. Tracks like Something You Get Through and Last Man Standing hinted at a man preparing to say goodbye, not out of sadness, but acceptance. For a man who spent his life running toward the next show, the next song, the next sunrise, the idea of stopping wasn't about quitting. It was about coming full circle. "Everything's a circle," he told a friend. "Even the road has to end somewhere." And that's when Willie Nelson began to reveal the truth. He wasn't afraid of the end. He was simply ready for it. Ready to slow down, ready to find peace, and ready to leave behind a legacy that would never fade. Because for Willie, the road was never about the destination. It was about the journey. And he had finally reached the place where the journey no longer needed to continue. Willie Nelson has always been a man of motion. From the dusty Texas honky-tonks of the 1950s to the world's grandest stages, his life has been one long, winding highway. Yet, as the years stretch on, the same open road that once brought him freedom now feels like a weight he can no longer carry. For decades, Willie's bus, famously named Honeysuckle Rose, was his home on wheels. Inside that bus, countless songs were written, friendships formed, and memories created under the glow of whiskey bottles and cigarette smoke. But lately, that bus has become a place of reflection rather than creation. The endless touring that defined his life, over 150 shows a year, even into his 80s, has taken a toll that no outlaw spirit can outrun. Friends close to Willie say that the last few years have changed him. The losses have piled up. His beloved sister and bandmate Bobby Nelson passed away, and longtime friends like Chris Christopherson have stepped away from the stage. "It's quiet now," Willie once said softly in an interview. "Too quiet sometimes." Those who know him well understand that behind that trademark grin and the ever-present bandana lies a deep sense of solitude. Health, too, has become a shadow over his shoulder. Willie has battled lung issues, back pain, and emphysema, all consequences of a lifetime spent singing, smoking, and living wild. While he's famously joked about his habits, claiming that marijuana saved his lungs from cigarettes, the years have nonetheless caught up. In 2019, he even had to cancel tour dates due to breathing problems, a move that deeply troubled fans who feared it might be the end of an era. But for Willie, it's not just the physical pain. It's the emotional exhaustion of living under the weight of his own legend. Everywhere he goes, fans expect the same Willie, the rebel, the outlaw, the eternal wanderer. Yet inside, he's begun to long for stillness. "I've been chasing something all my life," he admitted in one quiet moment. But maybe the chase isn't the point anymore. Music, once his escape, has become a mirror reflecting all that he's lost. The bandmate's gone, the audience is growing older, the realization that time, no matter how hard you fight it, always wins. These reflections are what led him to question how much longer he wants to keep going. As the sun sets on yet another tour, Willie finds himself standing alone backstage, his guitar trigger, worn, scratched, and full of history, resting silently beside him. The applause still echoes, but the joy that once filled his heart feels distant. For the first time in his long, storied life, Willie Nelson is wondering if it's finally time to stop running, to step off the road and let it all end on his own terms. For decades, Willie Nelson symbolized the outlaw country spirit, a man who defied Nashville's rules, broke industry barriers, and lived entirely on his own terms. But as the years have passed, that once thrilling defiance has started to feel more like a cage. The endless spotlight, the constant questions about retirement, and the weight of being an icon have all begun to take their toll. Willie has never been one to cling to fame, but now he's learning what it means to let go. In the early days, Willie thrived on the chaos. He loved the open road, the smoky bars, and the freedom that came with living outside the system. Alongside legends like Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Merle Haggard, he helped define a movement that gave country music its raw, rebellious edge. But those friends and his brothers in arms are gone now. Waylon, Merle, Johnny, all have left this world, and Willie often speaks of feeling like the last man standing. It's a lonely position for a man who once had an army of outlaws at his side. Lately, those close to him have noticed a change. His once boundless energy has dimmed, replaced by quiet moments of reflection. He's still sharp, still witty, but there's a sadness in his tone when he talks about the old days. "We used to raise hell," he once said in an interview. "Now I just raise memories." It's not regret that fills his heart. It's acceptance. Acceptance that time moves on, that even the wildest spirits eventually seek rest. There's also the burden of legacy. Willie has written more than 2,500 songs, recorded over 100 albums, and influenced countless artists across genres. He's built a reputation as both a poet and a philosopher, someone who saw through fame and found meaning in the simple things. But in private, he wonders what all that means now. "When the lights go down, what's left?" he mused during a recent interview. A man, a guitar, and the truth. That's it. That truth for Willie has become harder to face. The long nights, the endless travel, and the memories of those he's lost have pushed him toward a quieter chapter. He's spending more time at his ranch in Texas, surrounded by horses, nature, and family. For a man who spent most of his life moving, stillness has become both foreign and healing. It's funny, he once said. You spend your whole life running, and when you finally stop, you realize peace was there all along. Now, as he reflects on the journey, the triumphs, the mistakes, the heartbreaks, Willie is no longer the restless outlaw he once was. He's something deeper, a man who has lived fully, loved fiercely, and learned to embrace the end with grace. The road is still calling, but this time, Willie doesn't feel the urge to chase it. He's not running from anything anymore. Instead, he's slowly preparing to say goodbye, not in sorrow, but in gratitude for the wild, beautiful ride that was his life. At this stage of his life, Willie Nelson has stopped running. For more than 7 decades, he lived like a man racing against the clock, moving from one stage to another, chasing freedom, fighting battles with the industry, and outlasting nearly everyone who once stood beside him. But now at 91, something inside him has shifted. He no longer feels the need to outrun time. Instead, he's learning to walk with it. Those close to Willie describe a man who's finally found peace, not in the spotlight or the applause, but in the quiet moments of morning when the ranch is still and the only sound is the wind whispering through the trees. He spends most of his days in Texas now, surrounded by his family, his horses, and the wide-open sky he's always loved. The endless touring, the late nights, the smoke-filled bars, all of that is behind him. What remains is reflection. In rare interviews, Willie has spoken openly about mortality, saying, "I don't fear death. I've lived a long time and I've seen a lot of people go. It's just the next step in the journey." His words are simple, but they carry the weight of someone who has made peace with the inevitable. Music still flows through him like it always has, but it feels different now. Instead of performing for thousands, he plays for himself, slow, soft, and deeply personal. Each note sounds like a farewell, each lyric a quiet prayer. When asked about retirement, Willie smiled and said, "I'll keep playing until my fingers stop working." To him, music isn't a job. It's a way of breathing, and even as his body slows down, that rhythm remains unbroken. Friends say Willie has become more spiritual, reflecting often on what truly matters. He talks about love more than fame, peace more than money, forgiveness more than pride. "I've made a lot of mistakes," he once said, "but I learned that holding on to anger just burns your own house down." That philosophy, born from heartbreak and hard living, has become his quiet legacy, one of resilience, kindness, and self-acceptance. Now, when Willie looks back on his life, he doesn't see regrets. He sees stories of laughter, loss, rebellion, and redemption. He's a man who outlived the wild years and came out the other side stronger, softer, and more grateful. To his fans, he's a legend. To himself, he's just a man who got to sing his truth. In his final years, Willie doesn't want pity. He wants peace, and in many ways, he's already found it. Sitting beneath the Texas sunset, guitar resting on his lap, he smiles at the horizon. "If it all ended tomorrow," he once said, "I'd still be the luckiest man alive." Those words, like his songs, linger, a reminder that even legends grow old, but their spirit never fades,